Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to help you conquer complexity, basically turning those overwhelming stacks of source material into clear, concise, and importantly, immediately applicable knowledge. Today, we are wrestling with, well, maybe the definition of a vast field of study, scripture. Our sources today, they all circle around one central roadmap, the Bible in 52 weeks. A year-long Bible study for women. It's by Dr. Kimberly Moore. And our mission for you, the learner, is really to unpack this resource, not just as, a religious text, but almost as a masterclass in structural organization. We want to understand how this very structured, very manageable approach, how it succeeds in tackling, frankly, the monumental task of understanding a huge body of knowledge without causing total information overload.
Exactly. And if you look at the core problem Dr. Moore is solving, it's precisely that feeling, that sense of intimidation. So many people, and maybe particularly women, juggling families, careers, just endless demands. They really want a deeper connection to their faith. But then you pick up a traditional study guide or just look at the sheer size of the Bible, and it feels like trying to climb Mount Everest in sneakers. It just does.
Yeah.
The time commitment, the assumed background knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
it can feel like a huge barrier.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate project management challenge, isn't it? You know the problem's solvable, but the scale just kind of paralyzes you. Okay, so let's unpack this. Starting with the architect, the person behind the plan, Dr. Kimberly Moore. She's not just an academic, she's the senior pastor of Emmanuel Missionary Baptist Church, and she also founded Kimberly Moore Ministries. And that nonprofit focuses heavily on real-world empowerment, things like classes, scholarships, mentoring.
And the context is, well, I think it's fascinating here. Given her background in active community leadership, in mentoring, it makes perfect sense that she didn't create, say, a textbook or some dense theological commentary. She designed something more like a mentorship schedule. Her expertise seems to be in leading people towards practical goals, through sustained support. And that really translates directly into the structural choices in the book.
Absolutely. She built the scaffolding needed for building a habit, which brings us right to the genius of the 52-week strategy. That's section 1 in our source material. The structure itself is basically a brilliant segmentation strategy. It takes what feels like this massive, maybe 4-year reading commitment and breaks it down into 52 really manageable weekly chunks.
Right. It's like training for a marathon by just focusing on the next mile you need to run, not the whole 26.2 miles way out there. This strategy really prioritizes small, repeatable actions. So for you, the listener who craves clear structure, this means every single week has a very specific, limited set of passages assigned. The format looks clean, it's user-friendly, and it's deliberately accessible. Even for someone who's maybe never really opened a Bible before or feels intimidated by the size and complexity. It's really about establishing that rhythm of engagement.
And that rhythm is so critical, isn't it? Because, achieving a deep dive into any complex field needs that sustained focus, not just some frantic 3-week sprint. The book actually lets the reader engage with the entire Bible over the year, which, when you think about it, is a massive achievement in just comprehensive coverage.
And the sources also pointed out its dual suitability, which makes it incredibly versatile. It works perfectly for that quiet, individual study time, allowing for deep personal reflection. But because it has that clean weekly structure, it also adapts really smoothly to group settings. So communities can practice their faith together using the same weekly rhythm.
Okay, here's where, for me, it gets really interesting. Moving beyond just the structure and into the content itself, application. This resource doesn't just treat scripture like historical data you memorize. No, it treats it as living knowledge. Knowledge meant to actually change behavior. We're talking about application-focused reflections.
Exactly. And that's the difference, isn't it, between just passive reading and really active learning. Dr. Moore's insights, her prompts, they seem specifically designed to actively bridge the gap between scripture and real-life situations. That's the phrase used. They're encouraging the reader to ask, okay, what do I do with this knowledge today, right now? It includes these really thought-provoking questions designed to spur introspection and, integrate biblical principles into your daily decisions. Retention is always highest when you immediately apply the knowledge, right?
Right, and the thematic approach seems perfectly tailored for the target audience, women. The themes aren't just chronological or strictly academic. No, they're grounded in the modern experience of women. So the verses picked for a certain week, they don't just happen to be grouped together. They're actually synthesized around an actionable personal challenge.
Yeah, we saw some specific examples in the material, like you might have 1 week focused entirely on navigating relationship struggles. And it would pull verses maybe not just from the New Testament epistles, but perhaps from wisdom literature like Proverbs. Or another week might focus on confronting self-doubt, maybe drawing strengths from stories of biblical women who overcame huge odds. It's a really modern synthesis, actually.
Could you give us maybe a concrete example of how that segmentation works? Because that feels like the nugget of knowledge the learner needs, how this massive library gets distilled.
Sure, certainly. Think about an abstract concept like persevering through challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a traditional reading plan might just have you reading through, say, the Book of Kings that week.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that theme is embedded in there, but it's mixed in with genealogy, political history, all sorts of other stuff. But this 52-week method, it curates the knowledge. So it might assign you one chapter from James, maybe a section from the life of Job, and perhaps a psalm, all specifically organized under that banner of perseverance. This curation focuses your energy. It ensures the thematic insight doesn't get diluted by all the surrounding context.
That brings up a really critical point about source material freedom. What's fascinating here is the deliberate flexibility about translations. Why is that fact that the study works with any preferred translation? Why is that such an important feature for the learner?
Oh, that's definitely a very conscious design choice. The Bible exists in dozens of official English translations. You've got everything from very word-for-word literal ones to more dynamic thought-for-thought translations. And many readers have a version they grew up with, or maybe one they just find more comfortable, more resonant. So by making the reading plan translation agnostic, Dr. Moore basically removes a potential barrier to entry. It lets you connect more deeply if you're using the version that speaks most clearly to you. It really prioritizes that connection over just, compliance to one specific version.
Makes sense. And speaking of connection, let's talk about the tone itself. The writing style, the sources frequently mention it as warm, approachable, and crucially, non-preachy. It seems to transform the commitment from feeling like an academic task into more of a spiritual journey, maybe shared with a trusted mentor. It sounds motivational, not didactic.
And that tone has clearly driven significant success. The book came out in 2020, and it quickly became a USA Today bestseller. And the demand for this kind of structured approach also led to a companion book, the Small Group Workbook, the Bible in 52 Weeks for Women. So that allows people who find strength in community to share reflections and practice their faith together with friends, all using the same proven weekly framework.
But success aside, the sources did note, look, dividing the entire Bible, that's a library of 66 books, into just 52 weeks, well, that requires trade-offs, doesn't it? What specific trade-offs did we uncover about depth versus breadth? This is pretty essential for a thorough deep dive.
Right, that's where the critical appraisal comes in. On the pro side, the benefits are pretty clear. The segmented plan is, perfect for busy women. It encourages real-life application, reflection, all in a relatable style. It definitely maximizes breadth and accessibility.
Okay, but the sources did flag some genuine limitations, particularly regarding depth. If the main goal is accessibility and covering the whole scripture, you inherently sacrifice some detail. So what are the specific cons mentioned?
Well, the first limitation noted is pace. While it's designed to be manageable for the intended audience, for a reader who is absolutely new to reading scripture, that weekly commitment might still require, some significant initial discipline just to maintain the momentum. But the more important limitation, I think, relates back to that trade-off we just mentioned, theological commentary. Because the focus is on breadth covering the whole Bible, synthesizing themes, some passages could naturally benefit from more robust, in-depth theological or historical commentary, especially for those seeking advanced academic insight. So if you're looking for, say, a deep linguistic analysis of a specific Hebrew word, this book prioritizes practicality over that kind of exhaustive scholarly depth. It really is a guide for living, not a seminary textbook.
That seems like a crucial distinction for you, the learner. If your goal is consistency, practical integration into daily life, then the book sounds like it excels. But if your goal is more advanced academic preparation, you'll probably need supplementary material alongside it. The structural genius seems to lie in knowing its audience and really prioritizing habit formation above almost everything else.
Absolutely. And if we connect all these findings back to the learner's initial goal, understanding how to master a vast field without getting overwhelmed, the takeaway is pretty powerful. Dr. Moore provides a really effective roadmap. It shoots the focus away from the monumental size of the task and onto the achievable nature of the weekly habit. And that ensures the knowledge is actually internalized and applied.
Okay, so let's try and pull all this together. Summarize the core takeaway. This resource, it offers a clear, year-long pathway specifically for women seeking to build a consistent, impactful Bible reading habit. It takes what seems like a monumental, maybe paralyzing task, And it renders it solvable through effective segmentation, effective scheduling. It just makes the whole spiritual journey feel approachable.
So what does this all mean? Well, it means the key to navigating complexity isn't always finding the most comprehensive guide. Sometimes it's finding the guide with the most effective structure for consistent engagement. By using that application-focused reflection, by breaking the complexity down into these bite-sized segments, Dr. Moore ensures that the fundamental knowledge actually stays with you, that it gets integrated into your life long after those 52 weeks are done. It really transforms reading into active practice.
Right. Which brings us to our final thought, something for you to carry forward. If a single book can successfully distill the complex knowledge of the entire Bible into 52 actionable, themed weeks, what other massive fields of knowledge in your own life, maybe it's finance, maybe history, maybe learning a new technical skill, what else could be mastered by applying a similar principle? Find your own 52-week plan, establish that rhythm of engagement, and, well, start digging into your next big subject.